The year is 2013. It's the year of The Last of Us. Grand Theft Auto 5 has just been released for the first time of many, and a new generation of home consoles is beckoning. Retailers are optimistic about the new systems in spite of recent hardships, as players increasingly switch to buying online. For Game, the UK's leading video game retail chain, the past 2 years have been particularly difficult. 2012 saw them entering administration and closing an enormous 277 stores nationwide, leaving over 2,100 people out of work. The upcoming consoles are expected to provide a much-needed revenue boost, but the company is looking for all the help it can get to stand out from their competitors. As the crucial holiday season approaches, they need something big and bold. Enter a marketing campaign designed to turn heads and send stomachs churning in equal measure. Launched originally in December 2013, the Christmas Tinner was a spoof food product from Game. The premise was that this was Christmas dinner in a can for gamers, 9 layers of festive goodness squashed into a single tin. Can't spare even 10 minutes of gaming time to eat a Christmas meal with your family, you socially inept wretch? Well, Game has just the thing for you. It's got egg and bacon, mince pies, turkey and potatoes, gravy, bread sauce, cranberry sauce, broccoli with stuffing, roast carrots and parsnips, and then rounding out the luncheon with Christmas pudding at the bottom. After being unleashed upon the world in time for the holidays, the Christmas Tinner became a phenomenon of sorts, quickly spreading beyond the niche confines of the games media. It was talked about on the radio, featured in newspapers, on daytime TV. It was even mentioned on Saturday Night Live in the US. Despite all of this attention, however, there was one big question that hung in the air, and it's one there is still disagreement about online to this day. Was Christmas Tinner even real to begin with? Some say it was just a marketing stunt, others claim to have genuinely owned one. The further I looked into this, the more I saw how little consensus there was in the matter, and what revealed itself to me was a mystery with as many layers as the product in question. Before we get to the investigation, first here's some Christmas Tinner history. The product first made its debut on December 5th, 2013 for £1.99. It was a fairly modest launch, a few press emails were sent out, and slowly gaming news sites began to pick it up. Included were images of the festive delicacy and some shots of models tucking into it while playing games. The UK tabloid press, eager to never miss an opportunity to disparage video games and those who play them, quickly latched onto the story and dutifully spread the word. It went global, and the Christmas Tinner became known the world over. Game.co.uk was hammered with requests as shoppers searched for the elusive vessels of Yuletide sludge, but the site was not forthcoming. They remained out of stock indefinitely. Did Game severely underestimate the demand, or was it never available to begin with? Well, that depends who you ask, because there are a number of people online who have claimed to have gotten their hands on it all those years ago. The most prominent of these by far is a YouTuber named Stevie Jacko, who in 2013 posted a video of himself opening one of them and bravely ingesting the contents, without even heating it up either. What's more is, he actually liked it.
For the first layer, that is... I would not moan at that. I wouldn't complain at that at all.
But how did Stevie come to be one of the only people on the internet to experience the Christmas Tinner? I asked him, and his explanation was as follows. My friend works for Game, but he can't get hold of any more cans, which I can't understand. They seem to make a few, then decide not to make any. All a bit weird, as I think it would have took off. For what it's worth, there is some circumstantial evidence to support Stevie's story. In December 2013, Glenn Tickle, an inquisitive writer for the Mary Sue, spoke to him about it. At the time, he claimed to have bought it from a game branch in Basingstoke in the south of England. Now, not only is Game Basingstoke real, part of the original press release noted that they were given some cans in a trial run. The store used to have a Twitter account which did claim to have gotten a small shipment of them that quickly sold out. Just a day after it launched, they said, "We are currently out of Christmas Tinner. Sorry peeps." Commenters expressed their disappointment. I was just on my way to pick up a tin as well. To continue with our history lesson though, the holiday season of 2013 came and went, but the legend of Christmas Tinner lived on. Every year as we approached the festive season, memes about it would start doing the rounds on social media, and Stevie's video would experience an influx of views. For half a decade, come Christmas time, people check Game's site, hoping in vain to procure a can for themselves. It never happens, but a whole 6 years later, Tinner is finally put back on the menu. December 2019 sees the product being unexpectedly revived with a new twist, alongside the original version of vegan and vegetarian options. The relaunch receives, at least in games media circles, a little more pushback this time around. There are suggestions that the revival reeks of desperation, a gambit by a flagging business to claw back some slither of relevance. Here's what VG247 said at the time. Since it's 2019, Game's new business plan is social media shares and internet outrage via the medium of food in a tin can. The Christmas tinner is aimed at the lazy gamer, which seems a bit daft since a lazy gamer could probably order quite a nice meal from a local takeaway with a few clicks. Still no reason to actually visit Game then. Ultimately though, it mattered not, because for a second time around, the Christmas tinner went viral in no time. The newspapers ran with it again, it was mentioned on daytime chat shows, even Stephen Colbert talked about it.
Roast carrots and parsnips and Christmas pudding. And if you eat your way all the way to the bottom, there's a special prize, confronting what you've become.
Given the size at which this ballooned to, you might expect that there were at least some examples of the public trying the product this time around. Not so. Once again, none of them seem to be found in the wild. No YouTube taste tests or solid evidence they were a real product you could actually buy. On top of that, the Christmas tinner product page on Game's website perpetually listed the item as out of stock. It was then that I decided to reach out to people I knew who had interacted with the tinner phenomenon in some fashion, and one of the first people I spoke to was Dave Aubrey, a game journalist from the UK. Dave was writing about games when the Christmas tinner relaunched in 2019, and at the time, he tweeted that he had reached out to Game in an attempt to obtain a tin for a piece he was writing. He had intended to try it out and report on his findings in a courageous and important act of journalism. I followed up with him to talk turkey. Quote, "Ooh, now this is a throwback. I remember this, but I never actually managed to get one. I believe Game PR at the time had a few they were giving out, but I'm not sure it was ultimately anything more than a PR stunt." An interesting summation, with sentiments echoed by the next person I spoke to. Ryan Brown is a games industry veteran who worked at Game in the mid-2010s. While his time there didn't coincide with either launch, I still valued his input. He was fairly adamant that the tinner was nothing more than a festive facade. My understanding was it wasn't real, just a marketing gimmick that worked so well they recycled the exact same marketing campaign for several years. They probably made a few for marketing purposes, but certainly 100% wasn't an actual proper thing, just a marketing bit. It's at this point in the video that I imagine a lot of people watching will be thinking the same thing as I did. Christmas tinner is obviously not real. This was a stunt to lure in customers to a struggling business. But before we reach any conclusions, I want to first emphasize how widespread the idea was that this thing was absolutely legit. It is not an exaggeration to say that the overwhelming majority of comments on posts about the tinner were written in the earnest belief that it was real. In the replies to Game on Twitter, on YouTube videos about it, on articles, they're all dominated by people who at some point had sincerely bought into it, and in many cases wanted to experience it for themselves. I even found a video from the PR firm Game hired in 2013, and the comments are almost entirely comprised of angry customers seething about not being able to get their hands on it. It's a reflection, I think, of how universally the Christmas tinner was taken at face value by the wider media. In almost all of the coverage, from TV to newspaper articles, you will struggle to find even the faintest whiff of skepticism. Everyone wanted to believe that this story was real, and it's not hard to see why. Setting aside for a moment the simple comic value of this whole thing, from a media standpoint, here was a prepackaged story with all the trimmings. It didn't require paying anyone to follow up or research anything. It may well have basically been an advertisement, but that is the transaction a lot of outlets are willing to make for a quick and easy story like this, which is likely to perform well. You don't need to know anything about video games or even like them to form an opinion on it. It's an immediately accessible piece of content that anyone can grasp and have a reaction to. It is perfectly crafted bait for social media and low-hanging fruit for TV pundits to mock. No wonder it took off in the way that it did. For the sake of fairness, it's also worth noting that game was not a stranger to unusual marketing gimmicks. In 2002, they held a competition in NGC magazine that challenged people to go out in public and take a picture of the most ugly person they could find. This really happened. Quote, "What we want you to do this month is get yourself out and about and hunt down the weirdest/ugliest looking person you can find. You heard, they might have an extraordinary mullet, they might have a massive nose, they might be so ugly that they live in a cave. Whatever it is, we want to see them, and we need cold, hard, photographic evidence. The weirdest/ugliest of the lot gets free GameCube games for a year." Well, the sender of the photo does, not the weird/ugly looking person. The early 2000s was a very different time. Anyway, it's time to explore the true origins of Christmas Tinner and finally get some answers. I tracked down the man behind Christmas Tinner himself, who gave me the scoop, although thankfully not of the product itself. It's August 2013. Chris Godfrey is a student attending Kingston University in England, where he's studying graphic design. It's there, during work on his dissertation, that Chris creates his original cursed concoction. He calls it the All-in-One. It was a 12-course meal of varied cuisines and flavours reduced to mush and packed tightly into a single tin. Included was a cheese course, ravioli, French onion soup, ribeye steak, and pie with ice cream. But a commercial product this was not, it was actually more of an art piece. Chris made the All-in-One as a satirical commentary on consumerism and the UK government's policies of austerity which were barreling down on working people. The designer was interviewed by Kingston University for an article, and from there word spread of his invention. Design websites began covering it, it was featured on the TV show Gadget Man with Richard Ayoade, and it wasn't long until it caught the eye of a marketing creative named Mark Perkins. Mark served as a creative director at a PR firm named MHP Communications. It was in 2013 that the company was hired by Game to create a campaign which would bring attention to their brand in anticipation of a busy holiday season, as both the Xbox One and PS4 hit store shelves. Lending inspiration from Chris Godfrey's creation, Mark proposed a new spin on it: Christmas dinner in a can for bone-idle gamers who can't be bothered to pull themselves away from their new games to eat. The project was enthusiastically given the green light, and Mark went to Godfrey directly to help him realise it. During my research for this video, I found various theories as to what degree the substance seen in the photos was real, with a few skeptics suggesting it was a CGI render. In actuality, it was entirely real, as Mark explained to me. Chris Godfrey made 4 batches of the food product for a day of photography. He was up all night doing it, extremely time consuming, and the layers were held together by gelatin, which gave it that smooth, glossy look. Because it was gelatin, it would collapse after a while at room temperature. That's right, the OG Christmas Tinner was made by hand by a single man. Several tins of real Christmas Tinner substance did exist. It really did consist of the foods described in the press release. Godfrey made it by blending and boiling the various courses down into a paste before encasing it in gelatin like cat food. But was this Christmas concoction ever truly for sale to the public in any capacity? As for the 2013 edition at least, Mark gave me an emphatic no. It was a skillfully crafted hoax, a publicity stunt turned urban myth. Having said that, there remains one loose end. What about Stevie Jacko's video in which he purports to review the product? Well, shortly after I spoke to Stevie, his story began to fall apart like warm Christmas tinner. What first hit me off was the can in the video. Not only is the colour slightly different from the packaging in the promo shots, there is a noticeable lack of nutritional information, something the UK government requires to be printed on food products like this. I asked Stevie to clarify which department at Game he obtained it from. He told me that his source had worked in distribution, but was no longer at the company. Quote, "I should not have got hold of a can, as my friend took it from one of the offices without asking." A seemingly reasonable explanation on the surface of it, but I had finally caught Stevie in a contradiction because without realizing it, he had changed his story. Remember, when he spoke to the Mary Sue in 2013, he had told them that he had purchased his tin from a shop in Basingstoke. Eventually, when I got in touch with Mark Perkins, he was able to put the matter to rest for good. As for the tins with the branding and design, we made maybe a dozen to capture a point of sale shot in a dummy game store at head office. Anyone who got hold of one would be sorely disappointed if they expected a multi-layered Christmas dinner within. We bought a load of tins of beans, removed the wrapping, and put our Christmas tinner design over the can. Anyone claiming to have got hold of a tin of Christmas tinner is on a flight of fancy. What I will say though is that I don't think Stevie had any ill intent behind his deception. It was a prank, a good one, that has fooled thousands upon thousands of people over the best part of a decade. Clearly, making a Christmas tinner that convincing must have taken some effort, and it paid off. The actual 2013 Christmas tinner cans were disposed of in the aftermath of the campaign, according to Mark. Well, save for a couple. He revealed to me that he had rescued one of the only surviving tins as a memento, which now has pride of place in his study. As for Chris Godfrey, by the way, he went on to create this. Yes, really. The architect of the Christmas tinner is the same person behind the world record egg, the most liked Instagram photo of all time. So there you have it, that is the truth behind the original Christmas tinner. It was a real substance, but not a real product. This was a festive ruse that succeeded in what it set out to do, fool the public into visiting Game's site and stores. MHP claims that sales almost doubled over the previous year in December 2013 when the tinner launched. It was a similar situation for the 2019 version. A small handful were made for marketing purposes, but once again it was never for sale, contrary to popular belief. The marketing firm in charge of that year's efforts was Rise at 7, and it was made primarily to get people browsing Game's website. People searching for Christmas tinner on Google would find Game's site prominently displayed in the results, click through, and find a product page with it out of stock. However, the description was designed to subtly direct visitors towards a product they could buy. The Christmas tinner is back, a 3-course meal in a tin for those hardcore gamers that don't want to leave their gaming chair on Christmas Day. That's right, it was all an elaborate ploy to sell gaming chairs, and by all accounts it worked. Rise at 7 claims it increased Game's brand awareness and traffic by a notable margin. In the years since it was first revealed, the tinner continued to be talked about, Game didn't stop referencing it, and many people have even attempted to make their own. Real or not, its legacy is undeniable. I had just one question left. Has anyone ever actually eaten an official Christmas tinner? In the case of the 2013 one, Mark Perkins shared that only one person braved it in the end, a social media staffer at MHP named Greg Power, who doubled as one of the models seen in the original promo shots. No footage of the undertaking exists, but Greg is said to have been left feeling queasy by the ordeal. Mark also told me that UK daytime chat show This Morning had reached out to him, offering to have one of their presenters do the honours too. Quote, "The producer called saying Holly wants to try it on air. I would have gone for it, but my boss went nuts in case she got food poisoning and we had to refuse. In hindsight, killing Holly Willoughby with a contaminated tin of Christmas dinner would have been a bad career move." As for the 2019 version, on the other hand, one of Rise at 7's employees named Mark Roffey did in fact finally provide a legitimate taste test video. The verdict?
Tastes like feet.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos just like this one. If you'd like to support my work and allow me to keep making more of these, check me out on Patreon at patreon.com/LiamRobertson, just like these kind people did.